In this video, I mentioned an observation how people who have had a bad experience with other people tend to turn to faith or astrology as a way to help them understand why people act a certain way, rather than, taking a stance that personalities are very complex and human beings are also very complex. They create an ego or start a victim complex because they struggle to understand different personalities. So again, they'll just use astrology or faith to explain it. So what I find is astrology tends to be a go-to coping mechanism for someone who has a very surface level or black and white understanding of dealing with people and situations. But believe it or not, despite how I'm talking about this, I actually heavily enjoy astrology. I do believe there is some correlations to spiritual practices and ideologies to human behavior. But the problem I have with the astrology community and just astrology in general is that what I've noticed that it tends to be attached with people who end up creating themselves to be the main character. I've experienced people doing this more than I can count. I'm a Scorpio, so you should know I would do XYZ. Oh, my Aries is on this planet, so my anger issues and my small temper are because of this. Bro. The term narcissism essentially means that you believe you are the central focus of the universe and society. Astrology naturally positions people to be at the center of the universe, with planets and other factors interpreted strictly through the lens of how they affect you. So what happens is people will completely bypass any responsibility or accountability for their behavior or the lack of accomplishments or motivation or their bad practices because they're looking at life through a position of how the planets affect them. Blaming planets and retrogrades or toxic astrology signs is not a justification for bad behavior. You making cop out pleas for people too, or yourself. I remember even reading an article about this. Study shows people who believe in astrology tend to be less intelligent and more narcissistic. In the study, they surveyed 264 people and found these two correlations. Now, 264 is a very small sample size. Also, we have to consider the demographics. As far as my research is concerned, they did this over Facebook, okay? And it was 87% of young women. And this is like a correlation versus causation issue. This study doesn't necessarily prove that astrology makes you narcissistic or less intelligent. It just shows these traits tend to overlap with people who participate in such belief systems. In regard to the study, calling it low intelligence is a very strong claim, especially when there isn't enough evidence based on the research and it's a very small sample size. But the narcissism correlation, where they recognized people had a self-centered worldview and used horoscopes and astrology in general as a positive reinforcement for their self-centered worldview and how the world revolves around them, I believe it more than anything. I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I've seen others experience it. The thing about astrology with me, and I even mentioned earlier in this video, I said I actually enjoy having a conversation about it or creating correlations with it. For me, astrology has always been an easy conversation starter. I still even joke about it with people who I've discussed it with. I'll be like, oh man, that's the Leo in me, right? Or like my friends will joke about something. Oh, my moon is in Sagittarius, so I'm feeling like this right now. And see, we joke, we being silly, right? Like we're talking about something, or we'll talk about it or joke about it to invoke us to address something. Here's a good example. To me, it's like tarot cards. When you play tarot cards, right? You don't really play tarot cards. Well, whatever. When you use tarot cards, you draw 3 cards if you play that sort of set. Each tarot card has a different meaning, right? And depending on the position and the cards you drew, you can use it as a way to think about something you haven't thought about, which may invoke you to start thinking about something deeper you haven't addressed before, because the meaning of the tarot card gives you something to think about. It's pattern recognition. If you draw a tarot card, if a tarot card draw says something that you're too stubborn, you might start to reflect on whether that's true because you drew it from the cards. And now you start doing some valid self-work or self-awareness because of whatever the cards or the planets or whatever, it makes you think about something. Astrology is a very similar stance for me. If I can't articulate my human experience right now or my feelings, if I can't articulate it, I might throw an astrology joke in it. For those who care about astrology, like this is a good one. My moon is Cancer. Right? I'm a crybaby in real life. Okay. It's very easy for me to start crying. I'll cry over things that the smallest sad thing out there, I'll start crying, bro. And It's just very easy. And so sometimes I won't sit there and try to over rationalize why I'm crying over something so simple, right? But I won't try to explain to somebody right there. I'll just be like, I'll say something so, I'll be like, yo, my moon is Cancer. I cry a lot. Boom. Look, I just simplified myself. Instead of trying to over explain my emotional rationale. Like, nobody wants to sit there and have a full hour-long conversation about emotional rationale right now. You know what I'm saying? I'll just be like, hey, my moon is in Cancer. I use it metaphorically, not as something literal. The problem is when people start using this as an ego inflation, or they'll start acting like their behavior is some self-fulfilling prophecy. If you stop calculating your behavior or analyzing your pattern recognition for improvement because, oh, Mercury retrograde is active right now, and my sign is this and that. Bro, this stops you from intellectualizing yourself. So maybe the study has a point. Maybe it is an intelligence issue. If you stop intellectualizing yourself because the stars and planets are like this, so this is why I did or acted like this, that just shuts down the intellectual part of your self-awareness. You might be self-aware, but you might not be using the intellectual part of it. Like if you had anger issues, going back to what I said, well, my Mars is in Aries, so that's why I have a short temper. Okay, so you're saying your lack of emotional intelligence and regulations is strictly because of a planet? Huh. You're just going to surrender to that fact? That's it. That's why you have short temper? Not because of this could be trauma induced. This could be trauma based. Why do you have did you never do inner work to deal with your anger? Maybe we could start having those conversations, but no, it's just because your Mars is in Aries. All right. Look, when you do stuff like that, when you surrender to the fact of what astrology says to you like this, it's going to create a mindset where things happen to you rather than you making choices. Where things happen to you rather than you making choices. And that's where this whole narcissism issue comes from. Like you have a self-centered worldview. You have a choice to work on your issues, but you don't decide to do it because of your astrology. Astrology isn't bad, by the way. Don't get it twisted from what I'm saying in this video. I don't think astrology it's not bad as a spiritual practice or something to look into. I feel like it's bad when it stops you from growing up. If you use astrology to replace therapy, logic, or personality responsibility, you're using it as an excuse here then. I feel like astrology should be used for self-inquiry or self-reflection or self-examination, self-analysis. Let me dig deeper into something like that because of what the tarot cards drew that prompted me. Maybe I got anger issues right now, right? Like the Mars thing, like my horoscope or whatever prompted me to think like, no, it's like, you can't just be like, oh, it is what it is. My Mars is here and my sun sign and my Venus is like this. Like, come on now. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, what do you guys think? This episode is found on Spotify and YouTube. I'm out.